Why should we hire you? This is one of most interview questions that will actually have quite an effect on your chances of getting the job that you're trying to get. Now, when it comes to this question, it really can be broken down into two different ones. One of them is, are you really a good fit for this role? And the other one is, why should we hire you over other candidates? We're gonna break those down, but just before we start, remember to smash that like button below in order to help us reach more and more people who may be in the same situation as you are. All right, so let's begin. Well, let's break it down. Like I said, the first part of the question is, why are you a good fit for this role? This is something that you should have done already. You shouldn't go into an interview not knowing what role you're interviewing for or not knowing much about the company. You need to do your research, yes, about the company, but also about the division you're gonna work in and the specific role you're gonna do. What is it that's required of the person who's gonna be working on that? And do you match the requirements? So one way to do this is to do the research, like maybe seeing the job description if it's a job that's online. If it's not online and you were referred to it, then try and ask your network, the person who referred to you, who refer you, to give you some intel, to give you some information on, all right, what is it that this role is going to be about exactly, what is it that they're looking for. And this is a good way to find some of those requirements that may not necessarily be super advertised, because there's always part of that, right? So you can do that, or if you're applying online, or if the post is online, you can actually go and find the job description. So you're gonna have different things there. You're gonna have like, what is it that you're required to do, some of the responsibilities. You're gonna have some requirements and some qualifications, right? Like, okay, like what is it that the person needs to have? Do they need to have like a bachelor's? How many years of experience? All that stuff. Now, if you've seen any job description lately, you probably know that sometimes they look impossible. It's like they have 20, 40 items and you're just thinking like, oh my God, like who's gonna have like all 40 of those? It's gonna have to be like a perfect fit. Well, that's not how the real world works. They know very well that they won't necessarily get 100% fit based on what they put in the job description. But what they're looking for is for people who feel like they can match that to a certain degree, maybe 70%, 60%, or it depends, right? So basically what you want to do is you want to see that, and you want to see, okay, based on the things that they want, how many of those can I fulfill? And are some of the things that look very important things that I am good at? For example, let's say that you're going for a marketing role. You're going for a marketing role that has to do with social media. And they're focusing, let's say, on Instagram, and let's say just Instagram for simplicity's sake. And you know that you yourself have some experience doing Instagram, and you're doing it for millennials and now for Gen Z, and those are their target markets. They want to do it for younger people, Generation Z, and some of the millennials that are close to Gen Z in age. So you actually have a lot going for you because that's exactly what they're looking for, but obviously they have a lot of other requirements. Maybe they need you to have had like a master's in marketing and you only have a bachelor's, or maybe they also want you to have had 4 years of experience and you only have 2 years of experience, things along those lines. But you feel like your work experience that you've accrued and the experiences that you actually have in the projects you've done and your achievements are a good fit for that role. So you decide to apply it anyways. That's good. Now, when it comes to that, it's like you have that, which is good for the role. So how would you go about answering that question in order to help them see the fit part of it? Well, you could go somewhere along the lines of this. All right, so to my understanding, this social media marketing role requires someone who has good experience doing campaigns on Instagram, specifically for younger generations, such as people in Generation Z and some of the younger millennials as well. Coincidentally, for the past 2 years at my company, I've actually been doing those kinds of campaigns specifically for a very similar group of people. And because of our efforts in order to understand their consumer behavior and what kinds of posts they react to, we've actually been able to increase our company's revenue through marketing efforts by 2% or 3% or 5% per year, right? Like something along those lines, right? So that actually does several things. That answer, it gives them a solid example that they can pick from, and it's proof that you actually have the experience and you can deliver the results that they are looking for whoever they're going to bring in for that role. And you're also letting them know that you know what are some of the most important requirements for the role and that you actually fulfill them. So this actually helps them see, like, why should we hire you? Oh, because I'm a great fit for the role that you're looking for. Now, do notice that yes, you didn't have everything that they were looking for, but some of the most important things you actually were a good match for, right? Even if there are some of the other things that you don't match, like maybe they needed you to have, I don't know, the ability to manage a software, specific software that you are not necessarily. That's okay. You don't have to mention it, but if you do, you want to mention it like almost subliminally while you're talking about it. Let's go back to that example. I've actually helped to lead some of the campaigns that we've done through the use of software X, and you see, you're kind of like just letting it in the story in order to kind of like give them those words that they're looking for. Because what's in the job description, the words that they have in the job description or whatever they posted the job are very important for them to see reflected when you talk about them, so that there is no doubt whatsoever that you are a good fit for that in that term, in that way. Now, that's a good way to answer that part of why should we hire you. But we haven't still answered necessarily the part about why are you better than other candidates. After all, there may be other people with experience in marketing for Generation Z and millennials on Instagram. So how are you going to be better than the others? Well, it's not necessarily saying it. You don't want to say, oh, I'm better than the other candidates, or I know that it's hard to find candidates with XYZ. What you want to do is two things. If you actually feel like you are a really good fit for the role, like, I don't know, like out of all the requirements and qualifications and responsibilities, you have like a very high level of fit, then that can actually set you apart. If you are a much better fit than other people, that can actually make you a better candidate, right? Or if that's not the case, then you can show something else, something more unique about yourself that can actually help the work and that can actually make them want to hire you instead of others. So one of those things could be potentially showing more enthusiasm than other people. Another thing could be potentially having a kind of experience that, even though it's not necessarily in the job description, you know for a fact that it's going to be very enticing for the employers, for the interviewers. Once you mention it, they're going to think like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing is also that even if someone has a better fit than you, if you can actually come across as someone who's more likable and someone who is going to be easier to collaborate with, especially for roles that require those things, then you're still going to have an edge over the other person who may be too much of a fit. So there are different ways for you to actually come across as a candidate that they will rather hire versus someone who's just a better fit. Although you yourself being a better fit is a way to become the candidate to hire. So how would you go about doing this? Let's suppose that in the first example, you are a much better fit. You could go in and you could say, let's say that they're looking for someone who, yes, they do Instagram for Gen Z and millennials on Instagram. They do marketing on Instagram, but they also will prefer or strongly prefer if they were someone who, it's an online job, but they are actually preferring someone who's like in the Bay Area or someone who will actually go to the office. And you happen to have that advantage because you live there and you are willing to go into the office. It's going to be a huge difference. It's going to be a huge leg up in the game. Let's say, for example, that maybe they are looking for someone who does marketing on Instagram for Gen Z and millennials, but who also has experience now, let's say on TikTok, or who has experience on some of the other smaller apps that are coming up. and you actually do have some experience in those things, then that's going to be good, because that's going to reduce the pool of applicants who actually have all of those requirements, right? Like the hard requirements of like the Instagram marketing, but also the nice to have of like, hey, I have this other experience that you mentioned in the job description. And you can say that. You can go in and you can say something along the lines of, I know that sometimes finding candidates who have both experience on Instagram but also some of the other up and coming apps can be difficult. In this case, I can let you know that during my past 2 years at company XYZ, I've been working on a development team that had to craft and implement a good strategy for many of these up and coming younger generation apps that are still not at the level of maturity that Instagram has achieved. To give you an example, we have worked with the app A, app B, app C, and we've seen these types of results while we've been able to craft a good strategy for that. And I believe that that ability that I've been able to develop in that team is something that I could bring into this team in order to help us achieve the kind of results that we're looking for. Something along those lines, right? So that sets you apart, because it's like, okay, I have, like I mentioned, the basic requirements, but I also have the experience that it's unlikely that many candidates will have both of them. So, okay, let's say that you don't have that. What else can you do? You need to be either more likable and or someone who shows more enthusiasm for the position. In other words, you need to be someone who's going to give them a better gut feeling that they should hire you instead of the other person, even if their minds are telling them like, oh, but this candidate only has like 69% like fit versus the other who has more like 80 or 90, right? They're not going to be thinking analytically as hard. Usually it's the thing about gut feeling and whether you check some of the most important like need or must-have boxes when it comes to the things that they're looking for. So when it comes to being liked, several things you could do. One of them is either you are a likable person or you're not. If you are not, some of the things you can do are trying to maintain a little bit more eye contact, trying to smile a bit more, and also trying to build some rapport with them. Now, this is easier said than done, building rapport with people if you're not naturally good at doing that. But some of the things you can do is looking for commonalities, just being pleasant to be around. So not being too confrontational, not bringing problems where there are no problems, stuff like that. And basically, what you can do is be like them, essentially. If you live in the same area, bring that up. If you have any other commonality, just bring that up. As I mentioned, like maybe they like a sports that you like, maybe they like an artist that you like. Just mention something, right? You don't have to come with it out of nowhere, but if someone mentions something like that, maybe your interviewer is walking you towards the office in which the interview is going to take place, and they mention something along the lines of something that you can pick up from that you also share as an interest, then you can talk about that, and that's going to increase the rapport and the likability of you with the interviewer. Obviously, this is, as I said, easier said than done if you're not used to doing that, but that's a way in which you can become more likable towards them by being like them. Another way to be liked is to be attractive. Now, I know what you're gonna say, oh, but I'm not like the hottest person on earth. If you're already attractive, you already know that. But attractiveness is fungible. What I'm saying by that is like you're not just born and you're attractive. That's just not how it works. The way it works is you can make up a lot of what attractiveness is by changing things about you, changing your clothing, changing how you groom yourself, changing the way you behave, the kind of faces and poses that you do, the way you move, the way you stand. There are many things under your control that you can change in order to be come across as more attractive. That's why one of the biggest tips that people usually give you, especially for interviews, are to make a good first impression by dressing well. Try and look for a suit that's very very good looking, like maybe a new suit, or maybe if it's an older one, and that's okay, like just making sure that it's pretty clean, that it's looking good, that it doesn't have wrinkles in it. picking good shoes, not shoes that are completely messed up or tired down or don't shine or any of those things, right? Like having a belt, having your tie, if it's a suit and tie interview, right? You want to overdress over underdress for most situations, especially if it's an interview. So that's something that's important for that. Other than that, for the likability, I will say just be pleasant in the interview, right? And you can do a lot and gain a lot of points just by showing enthusiasm and excitement about the role that you're going to get into. So here's the deal. If you're watching this and you're telling me, but man, I don't know if I can show more enthusiasm because it's not really there, I'm just in it for the job. Well, I will ask you then, why do you deserve the job over another candidate who really enjoys what they're doing and is going to do a great job in that job, in that role, because they love what they're doing and they're picking the right job for them? You shouldn't be interviewing for things that you don't want to do. Even if it pays more or whatever the reason, you're just taking someone else's spot that deserves it more, and you may not even get that interview. I know, because I've been in many interviews where I didn't want to have the job. And the interviewers can feel this. They can definitely feel this. So it's important for you to go for things that you really want to do and that you feel excitement for, because that's going to come across and it's going to radically increase the chances of you getting that job. In my own experience, whenever I've gotten a job, it's because I've wanted to do it, at least at that point in time, and that enthusiasm comes across in the way you speak, in the way you answer the questions, and that is something that can gain you a lot of points, especially when it comes to this question of why should we hire you, which even if they don't ask you, is in the back of their minds. And basically, it's just that, like, why should we pick you over other people? And how good of a fit are you for this in terms of likability and ability to actually do the job? So if you found this helpful, remember to comment below, let us know any other questions you might have or any experience that you may have come across that you think might be helpful for others or that you would like some clarification on. Also, remember to smash that like button if you haven't, and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know whenever a new video comes out. Bye bye.